Karen barely slept that night, her dreams haunted by dancing gnomes and doors that changed colors like chameleons. She arrived at her office, a converted spare bedroom in her immaculate townhouse, at 5 a.m., determined to regain control. Her plan was simple: call an emergency HOA meeting and remind everyone exactly who was in charge. By 9 a.m., she'd drafted 17 violation notices, cross-referenced every subsection of the community guidelines, and prepared a PowerPoint presentation titled Maintaining Excellence: Why Rules Matter. She was reviewing her notes when her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Mrs. Patterson from down the street, holding what appeared to be a casserole dish. Karen opened the door cautiously. "Good morning, Karen. I brought you some banana bread," Mrs. Patterson said with an unusually warm smile. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" Karen's suspicion radar went into overdrive. "For what?" "For inspiring us to really read those HOA guidelines. You know, in all my years here, I never realized how many loopholes there were." Mrs. Patterson's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Did you know that Section 12.4 allows for seasonal decorative displays without any size restrictions? Halloween's coming up." Karen's blood pressure spiked as she imagined elaborate haunted house displays sprouting across the neighborhood. "Mrs. Patterson, surely you don't intend to." "Oh, but I do. We all do. The Creative Expression Support Group has grown to 47 members since yesterday. We're calling ourselves the Meadowbrook Liberation Front." She leaned in conspiratorially. "Marcus found a whole section about artistic installations being protected under cultural enrichment clauses. Fascinating reading." Karen slammed the door and immediately called an emergency board meeting. But when she arrived at the community center that evening, she found something unprecedented. The room was packed, not just with her usual compliant board members, but with residents she'd spent years intimidating into submission. Marcus stood at the front, his hot pink door somehow having acquired a matching flamingo lawn ornament overnight. "Thanks for coming, everyone. I think it's time we had an honest conversation about our community. This is highly irregular," Karen protested, clutching her gavel like a weapon. "I call this meeting to order." "Actually, Karen," said Ted Brennan, her own treasurer, "according to the bylaws you made us memorize, any resident can call for a vote of no confidence in the board leadership. We have the required signatures." Karen felt the room spin slightly. "You can't be serious." "Dead serious," said Mrs. Chen, flanked by several of her gnomes that she'd apparently brought as moral support. "We've tolerated your reign of beige terror long enough." "It's not terror." Karen's voice cracked. It's maintaining standards. Property values. Without rules, we'll have chaos." "You mean we'll have color?" Marcus said gently. "We'll have personality. We'll have a community where people aren't afraid to express themselves." For a moment, Karen saw herself through their eyes, a middle-aged woman so desperate for control that she'd forgotten what community actually meant. But the feeling passed quickly, replaced by familiar indignation. "Fine," she declared, standing straighter. "You want chaos. You'll get it. But don't come crying to me when this place looks like a carnival and your property values plummet." The vote was swift and decisive. 67 in favor of removing Karen from the HOA board, 3 against, including Karen herself. As the results were announced, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete and utter powerlessness. But as she gathered her things, Karen noticed something odd. Several residents were looking at her not with triumph, but with something that looked almost like concern. "Karen," Mrs. Patterson said softly, approaching her near the exit, "the support group meetings are every Thursday. If you ever want to talk." Karen stared at her for a long moment, then walked out into the night. As she passed Marcus's house, she stopped and really looked at the pink door for the first time. In the porch light, it was undeniably cheerful, almost welcoming. Her own door, she realized, was still the regulation colonial cream. It had been the same color for 15 years. As she reached for her keys, Karen made a decision that surprised even herself. Tomorrow, she was going to the hardware store. She wasn't sure what color she'd choose. Anything but beige seemed like a good start. Behind her, The community center lights stayed on late into the night as the Meadowbrook Liberation Front planned their next moves. And somewhere in the darkness, Karen Whitmore began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she'd been fighting the wrong battle all along. The question was, what would she do with this unexpected freedom? And more importantly, would the neighborhood be ready for whatever came next? Karen Whitmore adjusted her perfectly pressed blazer and smiled triumphantly as two police officers flanked her like personal bodyguards. Today, she would finally teach the residents of Meadowbrook Estates what happens when you mess with the Homeowners Association president. Her first stop, 1247 Elm Street, where that insufferable Marcus Thompson had dared to paint his front door navy blue instead of the approved colonial cream. Officers, as you can see, this flagrant violation of Section 4.2 bits of our community guidelines is clearly. Karen's voice trailed off as she noticed something peculiar. The door wasn't navy blue anymore, it was hot pink. Neon hot pink. With glitter. "Ma'am, are you sure you have the right address?" Officer Rodriguez asked, squinting at the door that seemed to pulse with its own radioactive glow. Before Karen could respond, Marcus emerged from the house wearing a paint-splattered apron and the biggest grin she'd ever seen. "Oh hey Karen. Perfect timing. I was just adding the finishing touches. What do you think? Too subtle?" Karen's left eye began its familiar twitch. In her 15 years as HOA president, she'd never encountered such audacity. "Mr. Thompson, this is absolutely unacceptable. The approved colors are clearly listed in Section 4.2 bits." "I know," Marcus interrupted, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. "Says here earth tones and muted colors only. But it doesn't say anything about accent colors or decorative elements. I checked with my lawyer cousin Eddie. Turns out I'm well within my rights, as long as the base color remains compliant." He gestured proudly to a thin strip of beige paint barely visible around the doorframe. "See? Colonial cream accent trim. Totally legal." Officer Martinez suppressed a snicker, which only made Karen's face redder. "This is preposterous. Officers, surely there's some municipal code about visual assault." "Ma'am, unless the door is flashing or playing loud music, there's not much we can do," Officer Rodriguez explained gently. "Maybe this is more of a civil matter?" Karen's phone buzzed with a text from her vice president. "Emergency. Mrs. Chen's garden gnomes are multiplying." As she speed-walked toward Maple Street, her designer heels clicking furiously against the sidewalk, Karen's mind raced. Marcus Thompson had clearly declared war, but he had no idea who he was dealing with. She'd spent decades perfecting the art of neighborhood intimidation, and no paint-happy rebel was going to undermine her authority. The sight that greeted her at Mrs. Chen's house made her stop dead in her tracks. Where yesterday there had been 3 modest garden gnomes, now an entire village had sprouted. Dozens of ceramic figures dotted the front yard. Gnomes fishing in a tiny pond, gnomes having tea parties, gnomes playing miniature instruments. A hand-painted sign read, "Gnomesville, population, growing daily." "Mrs. Chen." Karen's voice cracked like a whip. "What is the meaning of this?" The elderly woman emerged from behind a particularly elaborate gnome wedding scene, dirt under her fingernails and pure mischief in her eyes. "Oh, hello, Karen. I've been expecting you. Would you like to meet the mayor?" She gestured to a gnome wearing a tiny suit and holding a briefcase. "His name is Gnome Chomsky." Karen's eye twitch intensified. This is a clear violation of Section 7.3, regarding lawn ornamentation limits. The maximum number of decorative items is 3 per property. "Actually," Mrs. Chen said, consulting a notebook, "I checked the exact wording. It says 3 decorative installations. Each gnome family grouping counts as 1 installation, so the wedding party is 1, the fishing expedition is another, and the jazz band is the 3rd. Perfectly compliant." The officers exchanged glances that clearly said they'd rather be dealing with actual crime. "Ma'am, we really should be getting back to—" "No." Karen's voice reached a pitch that made several gnomes seem to wince. "You don't understand. This is about maintaining property values, community standards, the very fabric of civilization." But as she spoke, She noticed curtains twitching in windows throughout the neighborhood. Faces appeared, some amused, others concerned. For the first time in years, Karen felt a strange sensation. She was being watched, judged, and found wanting. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo from her secretary showing the community bulletin board. Someone had posted flyers for a creative expression support group meeting tomorrow night. The subtitle read, "For residents tired of beige." Karen stared at the image, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling slightly. Something was happening in Meadowbrook Estates. Something bigger than robe door colors and rebellious garden gnomes. The question was, could she stop it before it was too late?